Welcome back. As you know, we are the Law and Crime Network, and we have a very special afternoon for you. I am Kenney Baden, and while we have a lot of trials going on, there is one piece of news involving legal news that has taken the country by storm. That is the death or homicide or murder, as they are calling it, with the arrest of the police officer of Atatiana Jefferson in Fort Worth, Texas. And I'm going to have a very special guest. Ben Crump will be with me, so stay tuned. But first, we are going to listen to a quick clip of the police chief, the interim police chief, Chief Kraus, this morning telling us about the case.
To the citizens and the residents of our city, we understand your frustration and disappointment. I too am frustrated and disappointed by what occurred in the officer's actions. We never want an officer's response to a call to end in the loss of life. We have a great many officers who work extremely hard every day. They do this at great sacrifice and with a servant's heart. I ask you to please do not let the actions of one officer reflect on the other 1,700. There's absolutely no excuse for this incident, and the person responsible will be held accountable. Ms. Jefferson's family and our community will have the last word. The courts will speak on her behalf. Each and every one of you have our support and our commitment to serve you better. We strive to be better every day than we were the day before. My prayer for Atatiana's family, our community, and our department comes from Numbers chapter 6, verses 24 and 26. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord's face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace.
I can think of no better person than to discuss this case with me with the new author of a new book, Benjamin Crump. Ben Crump, my friend, open season. You see the cover there, Legalized Genocide of Colored People. Ben Crump, the book comes out today. I spent all night reading it, and I'd like to discuss it with you, especially in light of this first case, Atatiana, or Tay, as she was known by her family, Jefferson. First, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Linda. Thank you so much for having me, and I've been in constant contact with the lawyers representing Tatiana and maybe working on the case going forward.
That would be great, because as I said, you are a warrior for justice. When I was doing all the cases in New Jersey, you had started the cases in Florida. But let me ask you, you have a very different view of what constitutes colored people under this book. You don't say it's persons of specific race. Who are the colored people who are under attack, in your words, by racism in our country right now?
It is poor people who are being marginalized, disenfranchised, and dehumanized. And that is beyond just skin color. It's people of the LGBTQ community, as well as people who are disenfranchised by poverty or disabilities or mental health issues. We point out a lot in the book that when you have an interaction with police officers, whether you live or die should not be determined by the color of your skin or the status of your mental condition.
Right.
Many times we're seeing that police shoot first and ask questions later when it's people of color or disenfranchised people.
So people of color is anybody but white men. Specifically, you said the court system is really there to protect rich or wealthy white men. But let's talk about this case.
The same as it's always been since the Constitution, Linda. But yes, ma'am.
That's right. James Madison even wrote about that, I believe, in some of his writings early on in the founding of this country. But here, racism, you have an indication also, is not that you're discriminated against by the color of your skin, or whether you're LGBTQ, or whether you're female, or whether you're marginalized in the community, but it's making an excuse. What is that excuse?
Well, not so much excuse, but the facts. We are making an empirical case based on the fact that when you look at how the laws, which are supposed to be the protection, the last protection for your civil rights, for your constitutional rights, it is being used to promulgate the injustices, especially when you think about the things we legalize. Think about marijuana, just an example. Amber Geiger last week was convicted and sentenced to 10 years. where we know people of color and poor people are languishing in prisons, Linda Kenney Baden, for nonviolent drug offenses like selling marijuana. And so open season points out the hypocrisy that we have the government now being able to sell weed to pay their bills, but yet when poor people of color did the same exact thing that the United States government is doing now, they were locked up and put in prison. So the only equity, the only equal justice in my mind, being Crump, would be until they let all those poor minorities who are sitting in prisons to this day for selling marijuana out, they should not be able to benefit and make profit for doing the same exact thing that put those people in prison.
Well, Ben Crump, the police chief to me on Atatiana Jefferson's case seemed to be pretty even-handed this morning, and they have arrested this police officer right off the bat. They've charged him with murder, not just manslaughter, as obviously some people would argue, even not guilty, as some people would argue. They've charged him. Do you expect that the treatment of the police officer here and the treatment of Atatiana, that Atatiana's family will get justice here, and that by that I mean a conviction, or do you perceive that indeed your idea of your disclosure of races in the book will take over?
Well, as I was talking to Lee Merritt and Darrell Washington, my Texas brethren and co-counsels, they were telling me that Fort Worth, Texas is one of the most conservative parts of Texas. Unlike Dallas, they have had over 10 police shootings this year alone. And in those cases, they have treated the people of color who were unarmed, in many instances killed in those cases, very unfairly. They don't believe they got due process of the law. So even now they tell me, with the police chief making some pretty, I agree, even-handed statements about justice for this young lady who was in her own apartment, who probably never knew it was the police who shot and killed her. The fact that the police union are releasing statements now saying, well, she had a gun. How was the police to know he was in fear of his life? All those textbook arguments we have heard in the past, whether it's Alton Sterling, whether it's Philando Castile, Corey Jones, all these arguments we've heard to justify the police being able to kill these people who pose no threat.
Well, Ben, let me just ask you right now, though, but with Amber Geiger, the whole country was riveted and believed that, obviously, Botham Jean, who you represent the family, obviously had a right to be safe in his house. But the jury that gave her 10 years was mostly a minority jury. Are you saying, then, that there's no place for white people who aren't people of color, who aren't marginalized, to join this run for justice and try to make America a unified society?
No, I'm saying the opposite. In fact, I would hope and pray that with this book, they will see a mirror of America and this be a wake-up call to say, America, we're better than this. We can do better. Let's live up to the high ideals and the standards that we put in the Constitution of the United States, which makes America the beacon of hope and justice for all. What I would hope is that we will have equal justice. I have very rarely seen a black person convicted of murder get the same consideration and the same sympathy that a convicted murderer had gotten. And until we can do that, then a lot of people in communities of color say, hey, my brother, my uncle, my cousin, my niece, they were convicted of murder, and nobody gave them the benefit of the doubt. They got 30 years in prison. And you often, Lynn, I know you're a great criminal defense lawyer, so
but also, I also do a lot of civil rights work, Ben. As you know, I represented the Turnpike 4 and Stanton Crew and a lot of civil rights, 13 black troopers in New Jersey. So I do both.
I stand corrected. Exactly. And that's why I love working with you when we go to the Harvard Trial Practice Seminar every year, because I learn so much from you, Linda. But I was going to just make this simple point that black people who have looked at the Amber Geiger case, they say if the facts were reversed and Botham Jean or any of their relatives would have killed an unarmed black woman, unarmed white woman, nobody would be saying they should get the consideration or they should get the benefit of the doubt. Everybody, especially in Texas, would have been calling for the death penalty. And not that we're advocating for the death penalty, but what we want is this concept of equal justice under the law. The argument we make in this book is we want America not just to recite the Declaration of Independence, but we want them to act like they believe the Declaration of Independence, that all men are created equally, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Amongst them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's all Black people and Hispanic people have ever wanted in America.
Well, Ben, on the case in Florida, and you make an argument in the book that the stand your ground laws in many of these states are really open season for people of color. And again, you define color expansively, not merely people who are Black or just a minority, but define color as marginalized society. Now, and you specifically point to one case we just had a sentencing on. That's Marquise McLaughlin. He was shot outside the convenience store with his family, his significant other, the mother of his children, and indeed, the person who shot him just got convicted and was sentenced this week. Do you believe that the stand your ground laws need to take a step back, and why?
Absolutely. I think, as I said at the conclusion of the sentencing, that this was not just a verdict and a sentence for the family of Marquise McLaughlin, but it was also a victory for the spirit of Trayvon Martin and all the other victims of the stand your ground murderers in states of Florida and elsewhere. Because when Black people say stand your ground is self-defense, it doesn't work well for us. We are making those arguments from a jail cell and then a prison cell. But normally when white people have killed minorities, then we have had the exact opposite experience. Mm-hmm. As long as they make sure the person was dead, then their stand your ground argument stood a much greater chance of being successful. But with this sentence, I believe there's a new precedent set in the state of Florida to overturn what happened with the killing of 17-year-old Trayvon Martin as he walked home with a bag of Skittles and a can of iced tea, minding his own business. Well, now the citizens of Pinellas County, after being educated, I believe, on everything about stand your ground, from Trayvon Martin's case, from Corey Jones' case.
And Ben,
you remember that one, Linda?
Yeah, I remember all these, and these are all great cases, and you discuss a lot of these in your book, and I want to promote it again. It is called Legalized Genocide of Colored People, open season. I read it last night, as you know. I stepped at 4 o'clock in the morning, and the reason I'm cutting you off is because our time is short, but you do have 12 steps in the book to try to make America come together, or else, as you say, as in the words of the great Dr. Du Bois, if indeed we don't come together, we will destroy America. So one word would you like our viewers to know about you, your practice, and your victims that you have represented? Give us one word of faith and hope.
That we are trial lawyers of justice, and Linda, people like you and I, whenever we see an injustice, we can't turn away from it. We have to face it head on. Race silence does not mean race neutral. America, we're better than this.
Thank you, Ben. I mean, there's a lot of hope for the justice system, the warriors like you and everybody else who fight for civil rights since our country was founded in the Constitution, 1787, also enacted. We hope that indeed everybody gets justice in the United States of America. And we thank you for joining us. Welcome to your book tour. Good luck on your book tour, and good luck with your book, Benjamin Crump, my favorite civil rights lawyer, next to me, of course.
I love you, Linda. I will see you hopefully later this evening at the Strand Bookstore in New York on Broadway.
And I'm throwing you a kiss, Ben. Thank you for coming on the air at the Law and Crime Network. Appreciate it.
Give my best to Dr. Baden.
Will do. And that was Benjamin Crump, ladies and gentlemen. We also have a lot of other things going on in the network. We're going to talk about the sentencing of Sigfredo Garcia and the other trials going on. Stay with us. We will be right back.